In this video, I'm going to show you the exact steps you need to rebush a pivot hole with speed, accuracy, and show you how much play you need and how to determine if you have enough end shake and side-to-side shake in your holes to allow you to have a very smooth running movement that's going to last a very long time. Okay, now, so I've taken all the components off the clock to a point where I can now take the back plate off, and I can take the back plate off and go about repairing the worn pivot holes. But before I do that, I want to show you guys how I determine which holes are worn and need to be repaired. And if you look here, you can see that if I just move this gear back and forth with my thumb, that gathering pallet is moving. Okay, so what I do is I will examine each pivot. For example, this pivot here, I will move the power wheel. See how it moves? You see there? It should be centered. If it was centered, it would be like so. But due to the fact that it's worn, it's over here, okay? Here you draw an imaginary line with your eyes around the circumference of the pivot. If it takes up more than 30% of the circumference when it's in that worn position, it needs to be bushed. The clock will run just fine as long as not more than 30% of the pivot circumference falls into the worn area. And you do this for each pivot and determine which ones need to be bushed based on that 30% rule. Okay, so now that I've determined that this pivot needs to be bushed, I'm going to show you how I bush this hole from start to finish. Okay, so now that I've got this movement completely disassembled, I can get to work repairing the worn pivot holes. So if you remember earlier, we were looking at this particular hole as being one of the holes that we needed to bush. So I'm going to demonstrate to you exactly how to do that. Now this is actually the strike side. This is the turn it over to the other side. So I'm going to show you how to bush the star wheel. I took my calipers already and I measured all the pivot sizes of the clock. And I'll just show you here. Pivot size is about 1.28 millimeters. And generally for the star wheel, pivot size is the same on both. So it's 1.27. Now generally I'll polish these pivots before I reassemble the case, but I'm not going to reduce the diameter markedly enough to where I'd have to polish it before I bush and size the pivot hole. Alright? That you want to drill the hole from the inside of the plate. Okay? You don't want to drill the hole from the outside of the plate. Alright? As a general rule, I like to use a bushing diameter that is about twice the diameter of the pivot hole. So in this case it's 1.25. You multiply that by 2, you got 250. And we're going to use a 250 bushing here. All right, that's 2.5 millimeters. So I'm going to first cut the hole. I'm going to size it by using a 197 bushing cutter here. Then after that, I'm going to use a 247 cutter. Then I'm going to chamfer the hole using a chamfering tool. After that, I'm going to pull out a 250 size bushing. Okay, this is a number 10. All right. And I like to use the tall bushings and then cut them down. You want to have the bushing to be equal to or slightly less than the width of the plate or the thickness of the plate. So I always like to have larger bushings and cut them down than have two smaller bushings. All right. So let me show you the procedure. Let's start cutting. Okay, now, so what you're looking at is the Jacob's chuck from my drill press. All right. And here's my platform. And I have a series of jars that I use that I rest my plate on. Like so. Okay, tighten her down. My Allen key. So now, I'm going to make sure that my jar is flat on the plate and it's not resting on any points that are raised on the plate so that it's perfectly flat. And I'm going to hold the plate typically with 2 fingers. I don't want to hold the plate so tight that it won't move, but I want it to be secure because I'm going to allow the plate to rotate slightly, which will help the cutter find the center. Then I'm going to take this cutter out and I'm going to replace it with the 247 cutter. So now I've cut my hole and I've cut it to size 250, and also I've cut it from the inside of the plate, not the outside. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to chamfer this hole and then press the bushing in with this chamfering tool. Make sure there's no burrs. All right, and we'll do both sides. Good. So now I'm going to put my bushing in. This brass bushing here, and I like to use the tall ones, like I said, so that they stick out from the plate, and then I'll cut them down. Just a straight rod, aluminum rod, that I filed down the end so that it's flat as my pusher. And I rest the plate flat on the block. I'll take my bushing so that the concave part for the oil well is facing down, and I'm going to push. Can you see that? There we go. So here I have my bushing, and I have the concave side down. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and press that down so that it's flat against the front side of the plate. Here's my bushing. And then you'll see on the inside of the plate here, it's sticking out from the plate, okay? So I need to cut that down. And what I'm going to use to do that is this bushing end cutter. This is a size 300 cutting end cutter. So it'll cut the 250 size bushings, it'll cut the 300 size bushings. I recommend you wear safety goggles for this, but I didn't wear them. Okay, so now you look at my bushing here. I actually cut it so that it's slightly lower than the plate, right? That will allow to have enough proper end shake in the gear. So now I need to size the hole for the pivot, because that hole, the center hole here, is way too small for that star wheel to fit into. Here's my star wheel, and it's not going to fit in there. Okay, so I used to cut those by hand with my 5-sided broaches, and it took me forever, which is very good training, by the way. However, now I will use my drills to pre-size the hole, and then I'll broach it at the end. So the bushing size is 125, and I like to go 1/10 of a millimeter bigger in diameter. So I'd like to do 135. So let's see, 120. So I'll use a size 54 drill bit to do that. And if I measure this bit in millimeters, it's 1.38, 1.37. So it's about 12 hundredths of a millimeter larger than the pivot size. So it's a little bit bigger than my pivot, which is what I want, because I want a lot of nice, good play. And what I'll do is I'll cut the hole, and then I'll do a final touch with the broach. Good. If I take my star wheel, it'll fit in there. Okay. And it'll move. But now I need to make sure that the hole is smooth, no burrs. And what I do, I'm going to take my 5-sided broach. I'll put it in my pin vise. All right. I'm going to go ahead and broach this, and I make sure that I look from 2 directions so I know that I'm cutting it straight. And I'll put this back in just to make sure I got equal distant motion all the way around. Okay. And what I like to do actually is I'll put this to one side and then pull up. And if it comes out easily, that's an indication that I got enough play there. All right, and then I'll go through the back side and do a few cuts that way. Then I'll take my chamfering tool, and again clean off any burrs from the cuts on the edges. And there I have my bushed hole. And I had to move the camera around a bit and do different things and explain things. But you saw how quick that was. So now I want to do that for all the other pivot holes that I need to do and put it back together again. And I'll show you a star wheel in there. She moves nice and smooth. So I want to make sure, here's what you want to make sure. When the plates are together, can you move up and down? That's called end shake. You want to make sure you have that. That's important. Otherwise the clock will stop. Then you want to inspect and make sure you have side shake. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope the information in here was valuable to you. And really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed to my channel. Leave a comment. Let me know if you like the techniques I use, if you don't like them, how do you guys do it, and if there's anything else you want to learn how to do, shoot me a comment and I'll make another video. Thanks so much and have a great day.